Hi guys, I just wanted to review quickly coming up with a central idea and the difference between a topic and a central idea. So remember, there is a video posted from the beginning of March that when you're writing a part 3 essay, you're looking for two things. You need to include a literary device that is being used by the author, and you also should include what the theme or the lesson is. So what is the lesson of the story, the moral that we're supposed to take away that we can all understand and apply? And every piece of literature has a moral or a lesson. Otherwise, we wouldn't read literature. With Macbeth, we learn don't be too greedy. Or we learn that sometimes, having an excess of a quality, even if it's a virtue, like ambition, having too much of it can lead to a person's downfall. Or we can learn from Macbeth not to let others peer pressure us into things that we don't want to do because we pay the consequences afterwards. So any piece of literature has a theme or a lesson that it's true in the text, but then it's also true, we could see it true in our own lives as well as something that we can kind of take away from it. If literature didn't have that, we wouldn't bother reading literature in the first place. So that's why we continue to read literature, is there's always something that we can learn. We can learn from these characters' experiences. So in order to find what that idea is, the central idea or the theme, you have to first try to figure out what the text is about. So let's use rules of the game, for example. So rules of the game very clearly is there's some tension, right, between that mother and daughter. So we could say that it's about children's relationship with their parents. We could also say that it's about achievement, right? Because Waverly she wants to fit in with her brothers, so she wants to play chess, and then she eventually becomes one of the top chess champions. So it could be about achievement, or it could be about working hard for something, or pleasing your parents. Maybe that's what the topic is. So right there we have 4 different topics. Parent-child relationships, working hard for something, achieving something, and then pleasing your parents. So from there, you pick one of those topics and ask yourself, say, okay, so I understand what this is in the story. I understand this is about Waverly and her mom not getting along. But then you have to ask, okay, well, what am I supposed to learn about that? How does that apply to my life? Or maybe not to my life, but maybe how would it apply to somebody else around me? Well, if we look at something like pleasing her parents, right? Waverly feels like she's not pleasing her mom. So we say a central idea that we might be able to take from that is that when children live only to please their parents, it hurts the child in the long run. Maybe something like that. Or if you want to talk about the conflict between Waverly and her mother, you could say something about that frequently there is miscommunication, or parents and children don't have the same goals, something along those lines. What you'll notice is that in both of those examples, I did not say Waverly, I did not say her mother. I said children, I said parents. I tried to make it sound universal. So even though we are talking about a lesson from a specific short story, the theme that we're taking from it is worded so that it's universal, right? Universally, kids and parents don't always get along. I mean, I think that we can all agree on that, right? So universally, we could say that children and parents struggle to communicate, or children and parents do not always have the same goals or the same visions or the same understanding of how things should be done. Or sometimes we could say there is conflict between older generations and younger generations, right? You guys obviously see that playing out now. We can check. We're like, okay, is that true in the story? Yes, Waverly and her mother have different expectations. They're from different generations. Then we look at, is that true now? Yes, you look at the boomer-zoomer conflict, right? So we're like, okay, well, that central idea is true in the story and it's true now, then it works. It passes the central idea test. So now that you've got that out of the way, the next thing to do is now you have to think about, what literary device did I see in the story? Now, I know that we went over this in class, but just to reiterate, Just because a literary device shows up does not always mean that it's the best one, right? So I'm sure that there is a metaphor or a simile somewhere in Rules of the Game, but that does not mean that you need to choose that as your literary device. Choose something that you see repeated examples of throughout the text and that helps develop that central idea. So for example, for Rules of the Game, characterization is a great one. You could do characterization of Waverly. You could also do conflict, and the type of conflict, I'm not going to tell you, but it would be the type of conflict. We've got conflict between Waverly and between her mother, although there's also conflict with Waverly within herself. So remember what those two are called? Anyway, so after you've identified your literary device, this is where you then create your sentence that wraps up your whole introduction, right? So at the beginning of your introduction, you will talk a little bit to bring me in, to kind of bring me into the topic, and say for as long as time has been recorded, parents and children do not always see eye to eye. We even see this happening today with conflict between the boomer and zoomer generations. Another example of this happening is in Amy Tan's short story, The Rules of the Game, in which she uses conflict, we'll say, in which she uses external conflict between a mother and daughter to show that different generations have different values. Okay, so there's my introduction. It's about 3 sentences long, and I'm showing that this is a universal topic. It's a topic that is still relevant. I'm drawing my reader in because my reader is going to see, oh, boomers, zoomers, that's kind of a new current issue. Okay, I guess I'll keep reading. So I'm showing that it's a universal issue. It's something that still matters today, and then I'm also connecting it to the short story. In Amy Tan's short story, she uses external conflict between a mother and daughter to show that different generations have different values. Okay, so there's my central idea too. Different generations have different values. I'm doing this off the cuff. Hopefully you spend some time drafting this and yours is a little bit more developed. From here, what you do is you have a body paragraph with a couple of examples. Remember that your examples should always connect back to that central idea. So if you want to talk about if your central idea has something to do with conflict across generations, then each of your examples should go back to that central idea. It should be showing conflict in some way. Your conclusion, you can either have it be like 1 or 2 sentences, a small paragraph, or tacked on to the body paragraph. But I need to know that it's something, like I need to feel like, okay, this is done. It's wrapped up. And you should return back to your central idea in the body or in the conclusion.